We've all been there. Your friend messages you talking about how they found the greatest game ever conceived by the human mind, and it's only $30. At first, you're skeptical. For one, how much better can that game be than the one you've already been playing for years? The one that you have so many hours on that you still play it, no matter how much the ranked game mode makes you want to fry it. And two, how do you know your friend isn't just gonna quit? The last time they got you to get a game, you only logged on once and never again. Is this supposed to be different? Brushing those concerns aside, your friend assures you that this game is different. They say there's so many cool things you can do, like building massive forts or networking intricate factories. It might be a steep learning curve at first, but this survival game is so realistic you can get rashes. For a moment, you think about it. You did see some pretty cool gameplay highlights the other day, and you have been seeing some memes about the endgame on TikTok that you don't understand. You decide to buy the game, install it, and join your friend for the first session. And then, a week later, no one's played it and you've already quit another game. Or maybe you were in the other end, in the position of convincing your friend to get a new game, but either way, you ended up quitting it. Why does this happen? And why is the video title so oddly specific? Today, I'll be answering both of those questions based on my own experience with gaming. When it comes to the $30 title and time frame, those are really just both hyperbole. The game you're quitting could be $5, it could be $60, but you still quit in that short time span of 1 to 2 weeks. Maybe some of you are wondering why the price point even matters. And if you have enough money to buy new games every week, then good for you. You know, I'm happy you're in that position financially, but this is more a video made for people who spending $30 on a new game feels like this. You know, I'm a college student, and when I get a new game just to play it for a couple of hours, it kind of makes you wonder why I did that. Anyways, here are my thoughts. Now, the good news is that this is not just another video criticizing your attention span. So if you thought this was going to be one of those lectures, you can rest assured I find that kind of video to be incredibly cliche. But we are going to start off with a little bit of psychology going into what I call the endgame fallacy. Now, the interesting thing about our brains is that some studies have shown that we're actually wired to be lazy. In an experiment run by the University of British Columbia, subjects were shown 2 images in short succession. One of them a picture of physical activity, and the other one more relaxed and sedentary. The task was to move a miniature avatar towards and away from the images back and forth as quickly as possible as they cycled between both types. Interestingly enough, the study did show that participants were quicker to move away from the lazy images than active ones. However, electrodes recording their brain activity showed that it actually took more energy to do so. So even though they were working through a digital screen that didn't require any physical effort, the images associated with laziness were harder to avoid. Now don't worry, that's not the crux of this video at all. I'm not just here to call you lazy, because just saying that we naturally prefer easier tasks as the reason why we quit games so fast would be ridiculous on its own, especially because of a much different fact of the human brain, which is that it actually rewards us for taking on harder challenges. There are dozens of studies that show a connection between dopamine and hard work. According to the National Library of Medicine, quote, "When given a choice, humans and non-human animals alike tend to avoid effort. Here we suggest that the opposite is also true and review extensive evidence that effort can also add value. Not only can the same outcome be more rewarding if we apply more, not less effort, sometimes we select options precisely because they require effort." The research then goes on to say that one of the situations in which people seek out effort is when the alternative is to perform a task that is too easy and therefore understimulating. Such tasks are experienced as boring, and engaging in a more effortful task can avoid this negative affective state, thus imbuing this effort with positive value. Simply put, the brain can feel gratified after a challenging endeavor. There are plenty of people that, despite those studies that point towards a tendency to be lazy, love sitting down to write a difficult program or memorize a complicated recipe, and in our case, master a new and challenging game. Unless it's Pong, if you're picking up a new game, it's gonna take some cognitive effort to understand. Sure, this is obvious with more complex games like Dark Souls and Total War, but even games like Minecraft that many would consider easier will still take hours for a new player to learn even the most basic of crafting recipes. Well, at least before the crafting recipe book was added, but you get the point. But does this payment of effort mean that people don't like learning games? Definitely not, because for many, the feeling of mastering a game is uncomparably rewarding. So why am I bringing up all these studies with notions about work and laziness? Well, in my opinion, these tendencies back up the endgame fallacy I coined earlier, which is the mistaken belief that you can enjoy the rich experiences of a video game's endgame without putting in the work. Now, I know that might sound absurd to say because from a traditional view, gaming is a way to relax. It's a common way that people unwind from work or give their brain a break after it's fried from studying network administration. But I want you to think about other hobbies. If you ask someone who enjoyed playing the piano or molding pottery if it was relaxing to them, they would probably say yes. Yet if either of them are in any way proficient at what they do, they will probably have already devoted hundreds of hours of time and effort into their craft. Unless they've been playing Jingle Bells for 5 years, a piano player will have to put work into their hobby, sometimes straining work, memorizing sheets and techniques. You're not going to see someone passionate about baking bake chocolate chip cookies every single day. The reward is in conquering the learning curve of a key lime pie. It's like the Dark Souls of baking. Because in order to get that relaxation and reward out of a hobby, there needs to be at least some stimulation in the brain in the move towards improvement. The crux of this video being that most gamers don't see their hobby the same way. Let me ask you a question. If you're not playing a new game, what is it most likely that you're playing instead? A game you already know. For many of us, that game will tend to be one we've already mastered, often to the point where it has a drastically lower threshold of effort to play. This could be an online competitive game like a MOBA or shooter, which tends to have higher replayability, or maybe it's a single-player comfort game that you can start a new save in, already knowing everything that the game could possibly throw at you. Now, please do not get this video twisted. I'm by no means saying that there's anything wrong with playing games that you already know. I probably have 10,000 hours combined on like 3. The thing is, if people were content with only playing 3 games, they wouldn't install new ones or get hyped for new releases like Baldur's Gate or Starfield. As the theme of this video goes, there is a great reward and excitement behind mastering a new game. But what is that bolted-in belief, that mindset behind a comfort game? It should be a way to relax. And the truth is, we do get a lot of enjoyment from playing games that we've already mastered. But the longer you play a game, the easier it gets and the less stimulating. For many people, they still want a challenge, and there's where the paradox is. Many people today will install a new game expecting the satisfaction and mastery of their comfort game very quickly. They might believe, as we've highlighted, that gaming is solely a relaxing hobby, and so when a game is difficult or uncooperative, that part of the brain that is inclined towards the easiest or lazy path tells them to get out of there because this sucks. With a TV show, it could just be all boring exposition until you get to season 3, and then it's your favorite show of all time. And when it comes to that medium, people are willing to put in the hours, just like with the hobbies, knowing it will be worth it. But the misconception and fallacy of gaming is that the hobby itself is always supposed to be easy and leisurely and above that exposition. Somewhere out there right now is a new player loading into Project Zomboid. They are going to walk around in circles and die and then decide the game is bad because my other games make me feel happy and this one makes me feel screwed. They saw what a day 100 base looks like and they could tell that it would be fun. They imagined and knew how satisfying it could be to get there because of their experience with other past endgames. And that's why it was so easy to get convinced into buying a new game. The friend, or reviews, described the heights of what the game had to offer, and it reminded them of how fun the mid to end game of their favorite game could be. But then they loaded in and there was nothing but a mountain of learning in between them and that satisfaction, which they believed was below them for a video game. The promise of advanced gameplay is always enticing, but the work to get there is not often registered until you've already loaded in. There is a term in the creator community known as audience permission. It's pretty much how much time viewers are willing to give to a YouTube video versus something like a movie. For someone in a movie theater, it would be weird to leave 75% way through a decent movie, but people click out of YouTube videos halfway all the time. The audience permission for a movie could be 99%, while for a YouTube video 10. And for a new video game, the misconception about it always being a solely easy and natural learning curve makes that permission 1%. Fighting the hardest boss in your favorite video game might be more difficult than a level 1 boss on a different video game, but I would argue it takes less effort on your brain than the latter. If you want to know why you quit that $30 game after a week, this could be some evidence as towards why. If your expectation for effort is low, so will be your will when things don't come naturally. And that is why the motivation you got from being sold on the game disappeared the first moment of confusion about what to do. It's not the work of the game that is necessarily always difficult, but the mental strain to learn what is unknown about it. And the expectation you have about that dictates your experience. It's why you'll see a Dark Souls player barely phased after losing yet another boss fight. That game has a reputation and guaranteed of needing a wealth of effort to play it, so their expectations are fittedly low. Someone might have pitched the game to them as torture, but they'll be more content than someone who heard that Kerbal Space Program was just going to be instant rocket fun. Spoiler, it's not. Super Mario 64 is quick to pick up, but if I had to take a wild guess, I'd say people speedrun it because the challenge makes it more interesting. Just like any hobby or task, there are two sides to most people. One side that wants to enjoy something new, and the other that doesn't want to spend their whole winter break feeling like an idiot. So what would I propose as a solution? Align your expectations of what gaming is with your other hobbies. In other words, expect figuring out a new game to take a long time. I know that sounds obvious, but the number of games that have probably been returned on Steam after 30 minutes can't be insignificant. Games that would have otherwise been amazing experiences if people just put the same amount of time and effort that they put into watching the exposition of a new show. Every game you love took some time to master. You just didn't have anything to fall back on before it. It's why many of our favorite comfort games are the ones we first picked up. Games that we mastered over a decade ago when there wasn't anything else to default to. The number one easiest fix for this is probably just to buy less games. You don't have to ditch any of your comfort games, but try and buy less new ones. If you focus on what's already in your library and try mastering one of those games, you'll be able to put more hours into less games. Because if one shiny object distracts you from another, you'll always be stuck on that day one, starter base, level 1 tutorial. Sure, that game coming out soon might look great, And I'm sure if you put the time in, it will be. But chances are there's already an untouched game in your library with just as many rewards and challenges inside of it. It might look intimidating, but that's probably because you've already gotten a taste of what it's like, and you know what you're in for. The new game will require just as much commitment. It just doesn't feel like it because you've yet to experience that. At least if you stick to a game you already have, there will be less trouble choosing which one to focus on, and you'll save some money in the process. But what are your thoughts? Do you have any games that you think you should give a second chance? If you like this video, please consider doing a backflip on the subscribe button. I want to do this as a full-time job, and pressing that button would help me more than you know. Thank you to everyone who's been supporting the channel lately. I'm Lufa.
We need something stronger.
Come on, get in!
You built a pickup truck?
It's not just any pickup truck. It's the all-new 2019 Chevy Silverado.